The rain had been falling since dusk, soft and insistent against the tall windows of the penthouse, turning the city lights below into smears of gold and silver. Ethan Cole stood at the edge of the living room, a glass of untouched red wine warming in his hand, watching the droplets chase one another down the glass. Behind him, Isabella's voice cut through the quiet like a clean blade. "She simply can't come, Ethan. Not to our wedding." He turned. Isabella sat on the edge of the white sofa, legs crossed, phone still glowing in her lap. Her dark hair was pulled back in a perfect low knot. The diamond on her finger caught the lamplight and threw it back in sharp flashes. She looked composed, almost serene, as if she had just suggested they change the floral arrangements rather than exclude the woman who had raised him. "She's my mother," he said. Isabella's mouth tightened, the smallest fracture in her polish. "She's not suitable. The photographs, the guest list, the press, people will talk. She still lives in that little house in Oak Ridge, Ethan. She wears the same coat every winter. Guests will wonder why the mother of the groom looks like she wandered in from a thrift store." The words landed with a dull, physical weight. Ethan set the glass down carefully on the side table. A ring of condensation immediately formed beneath it. "She's the only family I have left." "Then she can watch the live stream," Isabella replied, already looking back at her phone. "I'll have Marcus arrange a private link. It's kinder, really. She won't feel out of place." He opened his mouth, closed it. The rain thickened against the glass. Somewhere in the kitchen, the refrigerator hummed, steady and indifferent. Isabella stood, smoothed the front of her silk blouse, and walked toward the hallway. "I'm calling the planner. We need to adjust the seating chart and the family photos, and Ethan—" She paused in the doorway, profile sharp against the warmer light of the corridor. "Don't make this difficult. We've both worked too hard for this day to be compromised." The door to the study closed behind her with a soft, decisive click. Ethan remained where he was, listening to the muffled cadence of her voice through the wall. He could not make out the words, only the tone. Efficient, slightly elevated, the same voice she used when she dismissed an underperforming associate. After a few minutes, the study door opened again. Isabella emerged, phone still in hand, expression settled. "It's done," she said. "Marcus is canceling the residual bookings that required her presence, the mother-son dance rehearsal slot, the family portrait hour, the extra place setting at the head table. Cleaner this way." She crossed to him, rested her fingertips lightly against his chest, and kissed the corner of his mouth. "You'll thank me later. Trust me." Then she went to bed. Ethan stayed by the window long after the lights in the penthouse had dimmed. The rain had slowed to a fine mist. Across the river, the older part of the city still glowed faintly. The neighborhood where his mother still lived in the same two-bedroom house with the blue shutters and the lemon tree that never quite fruited. He had not told Isabella the whole truth about that house. He had never told anyone. Morning arrived pale and washed out. Ethan moved through the kitchen on autopilot. Coffee, toast he did not eat, the familiar ritual of checking the market numbers on his tablet, though he already knew them by heart. Isabella appeared in a tailored charcoal dress, already on a call about a merger, already 3 steps ahead of the day. She kissed his cheek, murmured something about the florist confirming the peonies, and left without noticing that he had not answered. The ordinary shape of their life had always felt, to Ethan, like a carefully maintained room. Beautiful, climate-controlled, free of clutter. Isabella preferred it that way. She had grown up in a family that measured success in square footage and last names. Ethan had grown up measuring it in whether the heat stayed on through February. The difference had once felt like a bridge they could walk across together. Lately it felt more like a fault line. He spent the morning at the office, answering emails with half his mind. At noon he left early, citing a personal matter, and drove across the bridge toward Oak Ridge. The streets narrowed. The buildings dropped from glass to brick. When he pulled up in front of the small house with the blue shutters, the lemon tree was heavy with unripe fruit, leaves still wet from the night's rain. His mother opened the door before he could knock. Elena Cole was 62, small-boned, gray threaded through the dark hair she still wore in a loose braid. She wore a soft gray cardigan and the same practical shoes she had worn for years. Her eyes, though, were the same sharp green they had always been. "You look like you haven't slept," she said and stepped aside. The living room smelled of cinnamon and old books. A single photograph of Ethan's father, gone now 15 years, sat on the mantel beside a chipped blue vase. Elena moved to the kitchen without asking, poured 2 mugs of tea, and set one in front of him at the small table. "Isabella doesn't want you at the wedding," Ethan said. The words came out flatter than he intended. Elena's hands stilled around her mug. For a moment the only sound was the soft tick of the wall clock. "I see. She said you're not suitable, that people will talk." Elena looked down into her tea. A small private smile touched the corner of her mouth, the kind she used when she was deciding how much of the truth to offer. "And what did you say?" "I didn't say enough." She nodded once, as if that confirmed something she had already known. Weddings are strange things. They have a way of showing people what they value most. Ethan rubbed a hand across his face. "I don't know what to do. The invitations are already out. The venue is paid for. Everything is paid for." Elena finished quietly. "Yes." He looked up. Something in her tone made the air in the small kitchen feel suddenly thinner. Elena set her mug down with care. "Ethan, there is something I should have told you years ago. I kept it quiet because I wanted you to build a life that belonged to you, not to my money. But it seems the time for quiet has ended." She rose, walked to the small desk in the corner, and opened the bottom drawer. From it she drew a slim black folder and placed it on the table between them. Inside were statements, transfer confirmations, and a single letter on heavy cream paper bearing the letterhead of the Cole Foundation. The venue, the caterer, the orchestra, the flowers Isabella is so particular about, all of it has been paid for, anonymously, through a foundation I established after your father died. I sold the company quietly years ago. The house, the cardigan, the lemon tree. Those are choices. The rest is simply paper. Ethan stared at the documents. The numbers were larger than anything he had imagined, larger than the merger Isabella was currently negotiating. "You're comfortable," Elena said. "Very. And I have been sponsoring your wedding because I wanted my son to have a beautiful day, even if the bride never knew who made it possible." The room tilted slightly. Ethan pressed his palms flat against the table. "She canceled the mother-son dance," he said. "The family portraits, the place setting." Elena's expression did not change, but something behind her eyes cooled. "Then she has made her preference clear." That evening, Isabella found him in the penthouse study, the black folder open on the desk. She paused in the doorway, reading the stillness in his shoulders. "What's that?" He turned the folder toward her. "The invoices for the wedding, all of them. Paid in full 3 months ago by the Cole Foundation." Isabella frowned, stepped closer, scanned the top page. Color drained from her face in stages. This is a mistake, or a joke." "It's my mother," Ethan said. "She sold the company after Dad died. She's been funding everything anonymously so you wouldn't feel indebted. So the day would still feel like yours. Isabella's hand went to the edge of the desk. For a long moment she said nothing, then carefully, "She never told you?" "She wanted me to earn my own way. She still does." Isabella closed the folder with deliberate calm. "Then the situation has changed. Obviously. We'll reinstate everything. The dance, the portraits, the head table. I'll call Marcus immediately." "That's not the point." "Of course it is. We simply didn't have all the information." Ethan stood. "You didn't want her there when you thought she was poor. Now that you know she isn't, suddenly she's acceptable." Isabella's jaw tightened. "Don't be naive. Image matters. Perception matters. I was protecting us. You were protecting the photographs." The silence that followed was thick enough to taste. Isabella's phone buzzed on the desk. She ignored it. "I love you," she said at last, voice lower. "I want this wedding. I want us. But I will not apologize for wanting the day to look the way it should." Ethan looked at her. The precise makeup, the perfect posture, the diamond that had once felt like a promise and now felt like a contract. "I need some air," he said, and walked out. He drove without destination until the city thinned and the highway opened under a sky the color of wet slate. At a roadside diner, he sat in a back booth and ordered coffee he did not drink. The waitress refilled it twice without comment. Outside, trucks hissed past in the dark. His phone lit with Isabella's name 3 times. He let it ring. On the 4th call, he answered. "Where are you?" Her voice was tight. "Thinking." "Come home. We'll talk. We'll fix this." "I'm not sure it's fixable the way you mean." A pause, then quieter. "Ethan, please, don't do this." He ended the call. When he finally returned to the penthouse, near midnight, Isabella was waiting in the living room, barefoot, the silk robe belted tight. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. "I called Marcus," she said. "Everything is back on. The dance, the portraits, all of it. I even asked him to upgrade the champagne." Ethan set his keys on the console. "You still don't understand." "I understand that I made a mistake in judgment. I understand that your mother is significant, financially significant, and I am correcting course. That's the problem." She stepped closer. "What do you want from me? An apology on my knees? Fine. I'm sorry. I was wrong about the optics. I was wrong about her. Now can we please stop dismantling the only future that makes sense?" Ethan looked at the woman he had asked to marry him 6 months earlier on a balcony overlooking the same city that now glittered coldly beyond the rain-streaked glass. He had loved her certainty. He had loved the way she moved through rooms as if they already belonged to her. He had not noticed, until tonight, how carefully she measured belonging. "I want you to want my mother there because she's my mother," he said. "Not because she wrote the checks." Isabella's face closed. "You're being impossible." "Maybe." She turned away, arms folded. "Then perhaps we should postpone, until you've had time to recalibrate." The word hung between them like a small, precise insult. Ethan walked to the bedroom, packed a single bag, and left. Isabella did not follow him to the door. He slept that night on the narrow couch in his mother's living room, the same one he had stretched out on as a teenager after late shifts at the hardware store. In the morning, Elena made eggs and toast and said nothing about the suitcase by the door. Only when he had finished eating did she speak. "You don't have to choose between us." "I think I already did." Elena reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. Her fingers were cool, strong, familiar. "Then choose carefully," she said, "but choose for the right reasons." 3 days passed. Isabella called twice more. Ethan did not answer. On the fourth morning, a courier delivered a thick cream envelope to the blue-shuttered house. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The wedding is canceled. All deposits will be returned to the Cole Foundation. I hope you and your mother are very happy together. No signature. Only the faint indentation of a diamond ring pressed into the paper where her hand had rested too hard. Ethan sat on the front steps with the letter in his lap. The lemon tree stirred in a light breeze. Somewhere down the block a dog barked, then fell quiet. Elena came out and sat beside him. She did not ask to see the letter. She simply waited. She canceled everything, he said. I know. Marcus called the foundation this morning to process the refunds. Ethan laughed once, short and without humor. She didn't even keep the money. No, Elena said. She kept her pride. They sat in silence while the sun climbed higher, warming the wet leaves. Eventually Elena spoke again, softer. When your father died, I almost sold the house. Almost started over somewhere no one knew us. But I stayed. Not because I had to. Because I wanted the place where we had been happy to still exist, even if it looked small to other people. Ethan turned the letter over in his hands. I thought I was building something better. Bigger. You were, she said. You still can. Just not with someone who needs the size more than the substance. The lowest point arrived quietly, the way real endings often do. Ethan returned to the penthouse one last time to collect the rest of his things. Isabella was not there. The rooms felt staged, as if no one had ever truly lived in them, only performed. On the kitchen counter sat the engagement ring in its original box, the lid left open. He left it where it was. That night he walked the old neighborhood until his legs ached. He passed the hardware store where he had worked summers, the diner where his father used to take him for pancakes after church, the small park where Elena had taught him to ride a bicycle. Everything looked smaller and more permanent at the same time. He stopped beneath the lemon tree and pressed his forehead against the cool trunk. The bark smelled of rain and green wood. For the first time since Isabella's words in the penthouse, he allowed the full weight of the loss to settle. Not only the wedding, not only the woman. The version of himself that had believed love could be negotiated into the right shape if only the lighting was perfect and the guest list carefully curated. When he finally went inside, Elena was waiting with 2 mugs of tea. She did not ask if he was all right. She simply handed him a mug and sat with him in the quiet. The turning point came 3 weeks later, on an ordinary Tuesday. Ethan had begun helping his mother with the foundation's small community grants. Nothing glamorous, just quiet checks written for roof repairs and after-school programs in neighborhoods that rarely made the news. He was in the foundation's modest downtown office when the receptionist buzzed. There's a woman here to see you. She won't give a name. Isabella stood in the small waiting area wearing a simple navy coat, no jewelry except a thin gold chain. She looked younger without the armor of perfect makeup and tailored power. When she saw him, she straightened, as if bracing for impact. I came to return something, she said. She held out a small velvet box. Inside was the engagement ring. Ethan did not take it. You already left it at the apartment. I know, this is different. She closed the box and set it on the low table between them. I spent 3 weeks trying to hate you. It didn't work. Then I tried to hate your mother. That didn't work either. She drew a breath. I canceled the wedding because I was angry. And because I was afraid. Not of being poor, I've never been poor, but of being seen as someone who needed help. Of being the woman whose future mother-in-law had to quietly pay for the peonies and the orchestra so the photographs would still look right. Ethan said nothing. The office air conditioner hummed faintly. I grew up watching my parents measure every relationship by what it cost and what it returned," Isabella continued. "I thought that was wisdom. It turns out it was just fear with better lighting." She met his eyes. "I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm not even sure I deserve the conversation, but I needed you to know that I finally understand what I did, and that I'm sorry, not because the money changed the equation, but because the equation was wrong from the beginning." She stood. For a moment, she looked as if she might say more. Then she simply nodded, once, turned, and left. Ethan remained in the waiting area long after the door had closed. The velvet box sat on the table like a small, abandoned planet. He did not open it. That evening, he told Elena everything. She listened without interruption, then rose and opened a bottle of wine they had been saving for no particular reason. "People can surprise you," she said, pouring 2 glasses. "Sometimes in the worst ways, sometimes in the better ones." "Do you think she meant it?" Elena considered. "I think she meant the apology. Whether she can live the rest of it is another question. That's for her to answer, not us." Ethan swirled the wine. "I keep thinking about the wedding that almost happened. How close we came to standing in front of people and promising things we didn't fully understand. Then be grateful the rain came early," Elena said. "It washed the view clear." Months later, on a mild Saturday in early autumn, Ethan stood again in his mother's small backyard. The lemon tree had finally produced a handful of pale fruit. Strings of soft lights hung between the porch and the fence. A handful of neighbors and foundation colleagues milled about with plates of simple food. No orchestra, no peonies, no carefully curated guest list. Elena appeared at his shoulder, a light shawl around her shoulders. "You didn't have to do this," he said. "I wanted to. A small celebration for the grants we funded this year. And for my son, who finally stopped trying so hard to impress the wrong rooms." Ethan smiled. Across the yard, a woman named Claire, quiet, practical, the foundation's newest program director, was laughing at something a neighbor had said. She had been the one who suggested the backyard gathering instead of a hotel ballroom. She had also been the one who, 2 weeks earlier, had sat with him on the front steps and listened while he talked about the wedding that never happened, without offering advice or judgment. Only presence. Elena followed his gaze and said nothing. She did not need to. As the sky deepened from gold to violet, someone put on an old record. The music was scratchy, imperfect, alive. Ethan found himself standing beside Claire near the lemon tree. Neither of them spoke for a long time. The lights swayed gently overhead. Somewhere a child laughed. Claire glanced at him, then at the house with the blue shutters, then back. "Your mother makes good tea," she said. "She does. And good people, apparently." Ethan felt the corner of his mouth lift. "She's working on it." Claire's smile was small and real. She did not reach for his hand. She simply stood there with him under the imperfect lights, while the music played and the evening held its quiet, ordinary magic. Later, after the last guests had gone and the lights had been switched off, Ethan and Elena sat on the porch steps with the last of the wine. The air smelled of lemon leaves and wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney. "You look lighter," Elena said. "I feel it." She leaned her head briefly against his shoulder the way she had when he was small. "Good. The heavy things are better left for people who insist on carrying them." Ethan looked out at the dark yard, at the shape of the tree, at the house that had never needed to be large to be enough. "Thank you," he said, "for the wedding that didn't happen, and for the one that never needed to." Elena's voice was soft in the dark. "Any time, my boy. Any time." Above them, the sky was clear. scattered with stars that required no funding and no guest list. The night settled around the small house like a final, unhurried blessing, quiet, complete, and entirely their own.